Hello and welcome to the Crowley ISD PLC Curriculum Preview for the first 6 weeks for 3rd grade. I am Felicia Wilkerson, the Elementary ELAR and Social Studies Coordinator. I look forward to working with teachers and instructional leaders throughout the school year. Please feel free to communicate with me for any questions or for additional support. Please pause for a moment to review the Unit 1 Assessment Blueprint. The district has allowed for 3 days at the beginning of the 6 weeks to allow for beginning of year procedures. There are 21 instructional days for Unit 1, August 28 through September 26. The assessment will be posted for printing on September 25th and should be assessed on September 29th. As per the assessment guidelines, all teachers will be expected to administer unit assessments at the end of each unit. Unit assessments are expected to be administered within 3 school days upon completion of the unit. Also, for this curriculum preview, you will need your Unit 1 IFD, the organizing instruction using the text standard types, what we will call the content builder, and the PLC for the Reading PLC tool. For this preview, I will identify curriculum hotspots and provide comprehension instructional strategies that will include close reading using notice and note strategies, along with the anchor questions or text-dependent questions, and some Fundamental 5 strategies. I will model and lead you through an analysis of the cognitive complexity, content, and context complexity of the readiness standard. I will provide seed discussion questions for your PLC as a model of how to focus on learning in your PLC. I will model how to complete the content builder and the PLC for the Reading PLC for Readiness Standards 3.8, Figure 19D and E. You will analyze the readiness standards on the IFD to gain a deeper understanding of how to use the standards to focus on learning. The seed questions that will drive this curriculum preview PLC will be the 4 essential questions to focus on learning. What do we expect all students to learn? How will we know if they learned it? How will we respond to students who don't learn? And how will we enrich those who do learn? Let's look at the Grade 3 heat map by standard. I will model for you how to analyze data, because when you analyze data, you want to search for meaning. Unit 1 is fiction, so we'll focus on the fiction text. We see that there's been steady improvement in the readiness standards for student expectations for fiction. Both 3.8A and B have made steady gains. Let's take a look at 3.8 Figure 19D. Improvement is needed in 3.8 Figure 19D. Students have not made the needed gains to make those complex inferences. Therefore, the knowledge and skill statement of 3.8 plus Figure 19D is our hotspot. Let's also take a look at 3.8E, which is the standard for summarizing. We see that this is a hotspot as well, and we'll consider both of these when planning. Now that we have identified our hotspots for Unit 1 as 3.8, Figure 19D and E, let's focus on learning by first studying these texts and pause to discuss the essential question. Please locate Figure 19D on your IFD. Please pause the video to allow everyone to turn to their IFD. You will want to take notes for the next portion of the video. To set a purpose for reading, when we study a standard or a bundle of standards, we read with this question in mind. What do we want our students to learn? I will model for you how to thoroughly analyze the depth of knowledge on the IFD for this standard. We will analyze it through the filter of the question, what do we want our students to learn? Figure 19D reads, make inferences about text using textual evidence to support understanding. Now look in the second column, which is the unit level of specificity. The verb is make. This is the cognitive expectation for students. However, we cannot assume the level of blooms exclusively based on this verb. We must also consider the context for the levels of specificity because that can increase the complexity of the inferences students need to make. Next, we have the content. The content is what we teach. Here is inferences about text. The final portion tells us how and in what context students are expected to make inferences. The context adds complexity and specificity to the cognitive expectation. We see that students are expected to learn how to make inferences about text, including the structural and literary elements, sensory and figurative language used in fiction, and the purpose of the elements and the purpose of the language used in sections or in specific sentences. Students are also expected to make those inferences and use textual evidence to support their understanding. Now that we have a clear understanding of Figure 19D, refer to the note in the middle. It says to refer to the specificity of the knowledge and skill statements for each literary genre for additional information on inferring in each type of literary text. So let's read the knowledge and skill statement for fiction. 3.8 reads, students understand, make inferences, and draw conclusions about the structure and elements of fiction, and provide evidence to support their understanding. Notice the different cognitive levels in 3.8, where Figure 19 is make, 3.8 is understand, make, and draw conclusions. The content here is the structure and elements of fiction, and the context is in the genre of fiction. So notice the similarities and the differences in Figure 19D and the knowledge and skill statement. So after studying both the knowledge and skill statement and Figure 19D, we're able to formulate a response to our first essential question: what do we want our students to learn? Let's look at a STAR question that was coded 3.8 Figure 19D. We see the specificity on this question was the purpose of language in a sentence of text. We have our summary questions, and summary questions for fiction always follow the structure of fiction. According to the standards we have studied, what do we want our students to learn? And how will we make it relevant and rigorous for them? Take a moment to clearly answer question 1. This will be the focus statement for student learning. Then collaborate about how you can make the learning relevant and rigorous for students. Focus question number 2. How will we know the students learned? This is what we look for in everyday instruction, the knowing. Do students know conceptually, and can they demonstrate their learning to the depth and complexity of the standard? As we use the content builder, let's build our instructional plan for learning with this question in mind. To utilize the content builder, it is important to understand the framework of it. The process standards for ELAR are the Figure 19 standards. The Figure 19 standards that students use to gain access and learn concepts for 3rd grade are Figure 19A, B, and C. The content area concepts are the readiness standards. The scaffolds of learning are the supporting standards, which are those prerequisite skills students need to learn and master the readiness standard. The final process standards are the Figure 19 standards that students can use as ways to demonstrate that they can proficiently apply the concepts and content that was taught. The ways to show standards are Figure 19D, E, and F. It's time to build an instructional plan that works. I will model for you how to use the content builder to plan for learning. To start using the content builder, begin with placing your readiness standard in the readiness standard section indicated by green. So here I will place 3.8 Figure 19D. That is what we want our students to learn. Next, we want to consider the Figure 19 standards that give students access to learning the concepts and the content. So here I've placed Figure 19B and C because they'll need to ask questions of the text and monitor their comprehension in order to make complex inferences. For the supporting standards, you will consider what basic skills the students may need to begin learning the standard. Here you want to start with what they already should know, and if needed, begin interventions with the prerequisites, because supporting standards lead to future readiness standards. This is how you will respond when students don't learn, which is essential question number 3. And lastly, you want to consider those ways students can show or demonstrate their learning, and that is Figure 19, D, and E. Let's revisit focus question number 2. Using what we know about the process standards, we can now compose a response to this essential question. How will we know students have learned? That is, how will we gauge if students know and can demonstrate their learning to the depth and complexity of the standard? Please pause the video to discuss and write your response to this question. Remember that the supporting standards are the scaffolds of learning. They are those prerequisite skills the students may need to begin learning the standard. If students aren't successful at learning the large concepts, or they have gaps you need to attend to, start with what they should already know, and if needed, begin interventions with these standards. Discuss the following question and what it may look like on your campus. How will we provide students with additional time and support in a timely, directive, and systematic way when students experience difficulty? Please pause the video at this time to discuss. The fourth essential question to focus on learning is how do we enrich those who do learn? This question addresses the need to enrich students who are learning and take their thinking to a higher level. Examples are teachers can differentiate the content and process by varying text to match student reading levels, or differentiate the how by using learning centers, or differentiate the why by providing deeper levels of reading by setting more in-depth purposes for reading. As a collaborative team, it is important to begin by aligning your understanding of the standard, that is the verb plus the skill plus the context, in the knowledge and skill statements and the student expectation in order to reach the depth and complexity of each standard. The team should agree on what students must be able to do to demonstrate mastery of the high leverage skill, align understanding of the prerequisite skill or your supporting standards to know where instruction must begin, teacher check for understanding through individual formative assessments frequently to drive future instruction, teachers collect and review data to make instructional decisions about students and instruction. And teams should use assessment data to make adjustments to instructional plans. For this video, I will model for you how to use the PLC for the Reading PLC tool based on the instructional strategy I will share next. So first you want to put the unit name, and of course we're in fiction. So first you'll choose your text, so I'll choose a short story. Next, consider the levels of thinking according to what was used in the content builder. So they are establish a purpose for reading, use background knowledge, summarize, make inferences, ask questions, and monitor their comprehension. Next, you want to think about the evidence of learning that you want students to demonstrate, as well as how you will assess. So I'll choose the notice and note graphic organizers, as well as listening in on student discussions. Lastly, you want to consider the learning strategies used to teach students how to make inferences about text. So I'm going to choose close reading to focus the reader, as well as cooperative learning structures. The instructional strategy I will share with you today is called Notice and Note Close Reading Strategies. There are 6 signposts for students to notice, discuss, and note. The signposts are contrasts and contradictions, an aha moment, tough questions, words of the wiser, again and again, and a memory moment. Signposts emphasize the text features that reveals the signpost and the question students should consider. This is your text-dependent question, where students make inferences about text using text evidence. The signposts represent what we want students to do as they read. They notice the clues to the signpost, and their anchor questions are the literary element it helps them understand. As you teach each signpost, create an anchor chart for your classroom wall, like the one shown here. These anchor charts will serve as great anchor lessons and remind students to always notice and note. To explain the signpost, decide upon an order for teaching the notice and note signpost. Set aside time to teach each signpost, and some can be taught together. Teach each signpost lesson with a text that illustrates the targeted signposts. Use a gradual release model, and think about the generalizable language you will use, which students can carry with them to the next text they read. The gradual release model works well with this close reading strategy. You will demonstrate, then turn over part of the task to the class, have them collaborate, and then they will do it on their own. An example of this might be to first explain the signpost and the anchor question. Second, tell students you'll show them how the signpost you are teaching works by sharing a short text. Make sure they have a copy so they can make annotations. Third, you read aloud to the first occurrence of the signpost you are teaching. Point out that what you saw in the text that caused you to pause is the signpost you're teaching, and remind students that authors use this signpost to give readers information. This is the generalizable language. Do not exclude this. Then ask yourself the anchor question and share your thoughts about possible answers through a think aloud. This is where you are making inferences about text. Fourth, read the second section, stopping at the next instance of the signpost. Point out to students and ask them to turn and talk in pairs about the anchor question. Next, you want to read the third or perhaps the fourth section. This time, you're releasing responsibility to students even more as you ask them to both identify the signpost and discuss the anchor question. 6, read to the end of the section. Now, turning over a little bit more responsibility to the students, ask them to identify the most significant example of the signpost in the entire passage, discuss the anchor question, and report out to the full group. Tell students to watch out for the feature in their independent reading to mark those that they find, and write down their thoughts as they think about and reflect on the anchor question. At this point, you've turned over all responsibility to the students. The rationale and benefits of using the close reading strategies of Notice and Note are: it gives students a scaffold so they read closely and develop lifelong learning habits. Creates skilled, observant, engaged, and independent readers. Encourages students to use textual evidence. It alerts students to what's happening in the text. It allows students to make inferences about text, and it establishes a purpose for reading. The Notice and Note evidence of learning. Each signpost has several graphic organizers students can use to show their evidence of learning. This is an example graphic organizer of contrasts and contradictions. It serves as both a scaffold for learning and demonstration of learning because it has the text clues students look for to identify the signpost, as well as the anchor question to stimulate their deep thinking. This is another graphic organizer, an example of student discussions during the reading of Tuesday of Another June. Students noticed the contrast and contradiction of June's close relationship with her mom, but June failed to tell her that she's being physically and emotionally abused by another girl named June every Tuesday at swim practice. Listen to the students' thinking processes as they responded to the question, why is the character doing that? Later, students reflected and wrote about the most important signpost in this short story.
And that's why she's not? What do you? I'm feeling that our June is very sad. She's angry. She wants to do something about the way she's being treated.
But I'm wondering, why is she telling her mom? What do you think? What are you noticing?
I'm questioning why she hasn't stood up to the other June.
Okay, your mom?
I think she's not telling her mother because she doesn't want her mother to worry since she comes from work tired and she's always busy, so she doesn't want to like go on her mother.
Doesn't want her mother to get in this
Why not?
because she doesn't want her mother to embarrass her for why she's always there.
Ah,
To stand up for herself
why?
because
Well, what did her mama tell her at the beginning?
Be good.
Well,
Don't get in the fight.
to me, run to me.
run to me. So do you think that So do you think that her mom has prepared her
Yes.
well to take care of herself?
No.
Huh?
Her mother hasn't taught her how to stand up. She's taught her how to come to her.
What does the words, we are two women alone in the world, does that empower June, or does you think that weakens June?
Questioning like her mom sees her every day and stuff, right? And she sees all of that. I wonder if her mom's if June's lying
But
to
maybe
her mom.
maybe she's lying to her mom. Maybe she's wearing long sleeves. Maybe mom is so tired, all she has time to do is come home and cook and go to sleep. Because remember, June is a latchkey kid. Is mom there when she gets there?
No.
Okay.
noticing that not just like all the swim teacher and the mom is noticing, but all the kids too that are there when it's happening. They're not doing anything either.
I wonder if June messes with anybody else.
No, and then it also says that everybody else started calling her that too.
Oh, y'all are making some wonderful observations. Yes.
I'm wondering if anybody in the story later on is going to help June.
Appreciate you participating in the PLC curriculum preview. When you plan on implementing the Notice and Note close reading strategies, please invite me, as I would love to see classroom implementation. Or if you would like for me to come in and do a model lesson in your class, I'd love to do that as well. If you have suggestions for future curriculum previews, please submit ideas to the email shown on the screen. Also, I would love to hear from you if you have an instructional strategy that you would like to showcase in upcoming videos. Finally, please be sure to submit a copy of the PLC for the Reading PLC document to the appropriate campus designee. Until next time, bye-bye.